Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Society is constantly beating us over the head with this idea that the ultimate, life-changing financial milestone is hitting that magical $1 million mark. We've all seen the yachts and the mansions plastered all over our feeds, but the data and human psychology actually tell a completely different story. The most profound shift in your life? It doesn't actually happen at seven figures. Today, we're going to totally flip the script on how we view saving, stress, and what true freedom really looks like. Let's dive in. So I want you to imagine two identical people. I mean, exactly the same. They both make the exact same income. Payday hits, the salaries drop into their accounts. They wake up to the exact same alarm clock and go to the identical job. But their emotional lives are just wildly different. On one side, they're secretly panicked, sweating it out, feeling completely trapped. But on the other side, total confidence. They sleep like a baby and actually hold the power to just walk away whenever they want. So what is the secret difference between them? Okay, here's the surprising answer, and honestly, it packs a massive punch. It is not $1 million. It's not some crazy six-figure inheritance from a long-lost uncle. It is exactly $20,000. I know, right? It sounds kind of ridiculous at first. How in the world can just 20 grand completely change a person's entire life trajectory? Well, it's because this specific, very attainable threshold triggers something absolutely incredible in your brain. You see, social media has just completely warped our understanding of wealth. It's created this massive $1 million myth. We're sold this idea that rich equals luxury cars and private jets, so people completely exhaust themselves chasing this giant, glowing, almost impossible finish line, thinking, man, when I hit $1 million, that'll finally be secure. But that fundamentally misunderstands what money actually is. Money isn't just an exchange of goods. Real wealth literally rewires how your brain processes the world around you. Let's look at what happens when you don't have that cushion. We've all been there. It's the classic survival mode cycle. Day one, the paycheck hits, the bank balance is beautifully green, and life feels amazing. Day three, you're riding high, maybe treating yourself to a few random things online. Day four, you check your banking app and, yikes, the account looks like an absolute crime scene. Then, day six hits. A perfectly normal life event happens, something as simple as a flat tire, and suddenly, you are in a full-blown, heart-pounding panic. Just like that, your whole week is totally ruined. Because here's the reality. Without savings, you are living in pure survival mode. You're out there walking this razor-thin tightrope over a terrifying void of stress, unpaid bills, and debt. And when you're up on that tightrope, every single step feels incredibly dangerous. Can you quit that toxic job? No way. Can you move to a new city? Nope. Take a calculated risk? Absolutely not. Our human brains are literally hardwired to panic and become incredibly risk-averse whenever resources get scarce. Psychologists actually have a name for this. They call it scarcity brain. Think of your mind like a web browser that has 50 completely unrelated tabs open all at once. Scarcity aggressively shrinks your mental bandwidth. Your brain is just constantly buffering, totally exhausted by these tiny but super heavy questions. Should I buy this coffee? Can I afford groceries this week? Wait, which bill do I need to delay? With that constant processing load dragging you down, everything just grinds to a halt in an endless cycle of microstress. And because your brain is completely hijacked by survival mode, your vision gets super narrow. You become hyper-focused on solving these $10 survival problems. But here's the tragedy. When you're staring straight down at the ground just trying to survive day to day, you completely miss the $10,000 opportunities that are flying right over your head. People don't get stuck in this cycle because they aren't smart or because they're lazy. They get stuck because scarcity brain literally prevents them from seeing the bigger picture. But watch what happens when you start saving and building that wealth snowball. You hit that first $1,000 and you start the climb. Then you reach $5,000 and you're really building momentum. At $10,000, you are gaining some serious, undeniable confidence. And then boom, you hit $20,000. This is the exact moment that massive psychological shift kicks in. $20,000 isn't exactly yacht money, right? But psychologically speaking, that terrifying tightrope you were walking on suddenly turns into a wide, sturdy, unbreakable bridge. The finance world actually has a brilliant term for this. It's called walking away money. It's a financial cushion that completely eliminates desperation from your life. For the very first time, you gain options. It gives you the ultimate leverage. If your boss is toxic or your working conditions are just absolutely terrible, you suddenly have the very real option to say, yeah, no thank you, and walk right out the front door. And let me tell you, that power is the ultimate antidote to stress. Just notice the profound transformation in how you behave. Before you had that $20,000 cushion, you kind of just tolerated everything. You stayed quiet in meetings, you accepted unfair treatment. all because the sheer fear of missing a paycheck dictated every single action you took. But after you hit that 20K mark, your brain quietly whispers, hey, I'll survive. You don't panic anymore. You negotiate calmly. You literally, physically carry yourself differently because that heavy cloud of desperation has just completely vanished. Which brings us to this really profound realization. Desperation has massive hidden costs. Desperate people accept lower salaries and stay in toxic environments purely because fear is behind the steering wheel. But money creates distance between you and that fear. Going back to our two identical people from the very beginning, this is exactly why they live such vastly different lives. With that distance from fear, one person actually owns their choices, while the other is basically forced to rent them. Let's see how this actually plays out in the real world. Say a new opportunity pops up. Maybe a buddy offers you a role at their startup, or a much better job opens up in a new city. If you don't have savings, your immediate reaction is just fear. It feels like a massive threat to your very fragile survival. But with that 20K cushion, you react with pure excitement. It's the exact same opportunity, but because your brain finally has the bandwidth to think beyond mere survival, you can actually seize it and watch it grow into something amazing.
Now, let's keep it entirely realistic here. Getting to this point is not some quick, flashy Hollywood montage. No way. The first stage is painfully, aggressively boring. Saving that first 20 grand feels exactly like pushing a giant, heavy boulder up a ridiculously steep hill. You save a little bit, an emergency happens, the boulder rolls right back down, and you have to start all over again. Honestly, this is exactly where most people throw in the towel, because the beginning is just incredibly slow.
But here is the real secret that makes that brutal uphill climb so worth it. The true value of your first 20,000 isn't actually the money itself. It's what the process builds inside of you. We're talking unbreakable discipline, long-term patience. You are quite literally forging a completely new identity. Because anyone who successfully grinds out that kind of savings fundamentally transforms into a different person. You finally stop treating money as something that just instantly disappears, and you start treating it as a highly effective tool. And that leads directly to the ultimate mental pivot. Your internal monologue completely changes. The old question, driven by that exhausted scarcity brain, was always, what can I buy with this? But the new question, driven by your confident brain, is, what can this become? You begin to look at every single dollar, not as a ticket for consumption, but as a powerful seed for your future growth and stability. So, we arrive at a completely new definition of true wealth. The world desperately wants you to chase bigger numbers, more stuff, and endless luxury upgrades. But true wealth isn't $1 million in the bank or a flashy, expensive watch on your wrist. True wealth starts the exact moment your money begins buying freedom instead of status. It's reaching that beautiful point where fear no longer gets to sit in the driver's seat of your life. Which leaves us with one final, pretty powerful question. Once you realize that the first 20,000 quietly becomes the rock-solid foundation for literally everything that comes after, you stop asking, how much money do I need to feel rich? Instead, I want you to look at your finances right now, today, and ask yourself, how much freedom am I building? It's a question that changes absolutely everything. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new perspective on your own financial journey. Catch you next time.